Hi everyone, welcome tonight. I've taken some advice from a friend, Andrew, and switched my camera around to sideways. So if my eyes keep heading over this way, I do apologise. I'm just so used to looking at the top of the camera up there. So tonight I'm talking about attachments. So we spoke about that a little bit last time, where I was alluding to the three emotional systems involved in a romantic relationship. So that's sexual desire, attachment and love. So everybody experiences these differently. With attachment, there's a whole range of theories out there. So the attachment theory has been around for a long time in the world of psychology, and it applies to our romantic relationships just as much as it does in our infancy. So that's where attachment theory first is applied. So when you think about that first relationship that you had with your caregivers, whether that be your biological mum and dad or whoever raised you, that sets you up for how you attach or how you bond with another human later on in life. So there's four main categories of attachment. So the first one is the ideal one, is the secure attachment. So if you've had parents who were able to meet your needs both physically and emotionally consistently, so if you cried, you were picked up. If you had a pooey nappy, you were changed relatively quickly. All those things taught you that you could come to rely on your parents to meet those needs, but at the same time also taught you some independence as it was age appropriate. Then we have the next one, which isn't ideal, but I don't think there's that many people that fall into the secure attachment one, so don't get too hung up on that one. That's the ideal, and there are some who have it, but most of us don't. So the next one is, oh hi Andy from the UK, thanks for letting me know where you are, is anxious or preoccupied. So this is when parents aren't consistent and or they're overprotective. So as you can imagine, a child becomes very anxious when they're around a parent like that, and also they tend to be very preoccupied with what their caregiver's doing. So it's like when you see little ones and they're monitoring their parents and watching wherever they go just to see what they're doing, see what their emotional response is. So they're almost mimicking their parents. Then you also get what's called a dismissing, and that's more to the other extreme. So this is parents that I guess have been spread too thin, so they don't have the time, whether that's through neglect or whether that's just through they have very long working hours, so the child's in daycare for most of their upbringing. So this child can develop what's called a dismissing attachment, and this means more they're able to sort of self-soothe better. They don't tend to look to their caregiver for any sort of attention, so they just assume I'll look after myself, and they're not really preoccupied with what their caregiver's doing. And there is a fourth one, which is sort of a mix of those last two. So this is a fearful avoidance. So they're a combination of being very anxious and needing that closeness and needing to know where their caregiver is and stressing out when their caregiver goes away, but at the same time they can be very dismissive and just like whatever, look after themselves. So each four of those translates into adulthood. So the way that we've attached as a young child is the way that we will treat our partner, our romantic partner. So like I said, there's not that many of us that fit into the secure attachment, so don't beat yourself up if you're thinking, oh, where does this person exist? Because, no one's perfect. And even if you do fit into this category, you're probably going to slip in and out of the others anyway. But the secure attachment is the person who wants an equality within the relationship, so they don't have any issue with being dependent on their partner, and likewise they don't have any problem being independent or being the person being depended upon. They also are very trusting, they're quite open, they like spending time with their partner, but at the same time they don't need to be living in each other's pockets. Now, of course, the anxious and preoccupied person is probably one that I think a lot of you can assimilate with or be familiar with, whether it's yourself or whether it's a partner. So this is the person who, hey Scott, this is a person who very anxious about where their partner is. So they tend to love very quickly. They fall in love very, very quickly and want to jump in, sort of boots and all, almost like want to get married within the first 2 weeks. They need to know where their partner is all the time. They're constantly sort of checking their phone to see how frequently or when the person's even been on social media. So they're almost like stalking their own partner because they get so anxious because they have this concern. My cat's just joined in behind there. They get really concerned if they haven't heard from their partner for a while. Hey, Tom. Then, of course, you've got the other extreme, which is the dismissing. So the dismissing is the person who doesn't really like intimacy. They're not really big on touch. They don't like that closeness. They don't really like someone being dependent on them, and they certainly don't like to be dependent on anybody else. They're very self-sufficient. They can be a little bit cynical, and if you try to get too close to them, they have a tendency to pull back because they're just really uncomfortable with that deep level of intimacy. They're almost like a little island, so they're happy to have a relationship, but you know, you can only come and dock your boat very occasionally and then, you know, be on your way. Hopefully this cat doesn't knock this off. Excuse me, Casper. Then the last one, the fearful avoidance. So that, like I said, it's a harder one to pinpoint because it's a combination of the two. So it's sort of, if any of you know that Pink song, Go Away, Come Back, where she's talking about a husband and, you know, she wants to spend time with him, but, you know, she only wants him in small doses and sort of when she wants. And, sorry, I just have to move this cat. Move. Worried she's going to knock everything over. Yeah, so one of the lines I think in the song is like about eating whatever dinner, but she doesn't want to eat the same damn thing every night. It's sort of a bit like that. So one minute she's anxious and she needs him around, but then the next minute it's like, no, want my space, get out. So they're a harder one, obviously, because, you know, you're getting a mix of both. So where does this apply? So I'll give you an example. So say you've got a fiance, they're heading out with friends for the night, and your fiance says, oh look, I'll be home about 12, I'll give you a buzz or I'll send you a text to let you know I'm home safe. So if you're a secure style attachment, it's fine, your partner goes out, it's 1 a.m, you haven't heard anything, you're probably not going to be too worried. I mean, your partner's an adult, so you're probably not going to stress too much to think that, you know, anything's happened. But at the same time, you probably just think that they're having some fun, so great. You go to bed, the next morning you'll get a call. Then you've got the anxious. Now, of course, you can imagine an anxious or preoccupied attachment style is going to be having a nightmare of a night. They're going to be stressing like you wouldn't believe, and they'll probably dial 7 times already between midnight and 1 o'clock to see where you are. They'll probably put the worst case scenario in their head that something terrible's happened, but at the same time they could be just as easily plotting revenge because they're that worked up about what's happened as to why you haven't called at midnight when you said you would. Then you have the dismissing. Now to them it's like, no big deal. They go to bed. Not a problem because, you know, it's here nor there to them. You do what you want, I do what I want. So then it comes morning time and you get a call about 7 a.m. To say sort of what had happened. So the secure attachment, of course, you're going to say sort of what happened. You'll have an explanation. I don't know, got caught up, I was having fun, thought it was a bit late to text you, so I thought I'd wait till morning. And you'd be probably perfectly fine with that explanation. No problem. Then you have the anxious. So the anxious or preoccupied style of attachment is going to be so stressed, and they're probably barking down the phone at you and saying, what were you doing? Who were you with? What time do you call this? Do you know what happened? I was stressing all night. And, you know, I'm sure you know the dialogue that would be entailed there. Then you have the dismissive. And the dismissive is probably going to be like, why are you waking me up at 7? Like, couldn't you have waited till later to call me? So I don't know if any of, and then of course that fearful avoidant, I mean, roll the dice. You could get either of those. You could get an earful as to sort of why you didn't call when you said you were going to, or you could get someone annoyed that you even bothered to wake them up. Now, I think the thing that you have to take into account when you're thinking about attachment style, so whether you've recognised one of these as an attachment style that you have, or your partner or previous partner has, they have a big impact on all the relationship factors. So, you know, whether you're talking about jealousy, self-disclosure, conflict, forgiveness, love, commitment, what other things, lying, infidelity, sexual behaviour, and everything goes back to the way that we have formed attachment with our caregivers will certainly impact the way that we treat our partners later on in life. Having an awareness of it is crucial, because naturally if you're anxious or a dismissive style, where that you're either needing constant validation, so you're always checking to see, and you probably experienced this or heard this, where, you know, particularly younger girls, I guess, and they're notorious for like, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you? Are you sure you love me? And just go on because they need constant reassurance. And then you get dismissive, where you'll get, and I'm being stereotypical here, but you know, it's a common thing, I guess, more for a guy to be a bit dismissive. They're not so lovey-dovey, and it's just like, yeah, you know, and brush it off that way. Of course, both genders have both styles, but if you know you have a tendency to be like that, you want to aim for that secure attachment. So you want to have that relationship where you're not needing constant validation, but at the same time you are giving your partner enough validation so that they don't need to feel anxious. If you have a tendency to be a bit dismissive, you have to ask yourself sort of why you are, where it came from, and look at ways to open yourself up a little bit more, because just because you've had a primary carer that hasn't met your needs, it's not to say that every person in your life is going to be exactly the same. We can very much control how we're treated. I'm a very firm believer in the fact that we get treated the way we allow people to treat us. So if you have standards that are here, then that's all you're going to get. But if you raise your standards, sure, people aren't going to like it because they're not used to it, but there's so many people in this world. You will have friends, you will have partners who treat you with more respect. So it's about having, I guess, the courage to step up and own what your attachment style is. So if you're not sitting in that ideal secure attachment, realise that, okay, I've got some work to do. I get a bit anxious. Why do I get so anxious? Why do I need this constant validation? And, you know, send me a message. I can put you on the track of some reading. Obviously there's professional help through counsellors, coaches, a whole range of people that can help you uncover that. And it doesn't have to be, you know, the deep, you know, psychoanalytical work. It can be quite light. It doesn't have to be as heavy as some might think it is. It's more just talking to somebody who has a little bit of knowledge as to, you know, what makes us tick and why we make these decisions. Once you've identified what your attachment style is, then it's a matter of working through that so that you can move towards that secure attachment, so that you are feeling more confident in who you are. You're not needing constant validation, but you're not closing yourself off either, so that you're shutting your partner out. Because at the end of the day, if you choose to be in a relationship, you need to make that decision for the both of you. So you need to open yourself up to a certain level of vulnerability if you want to have any sort of closeness with your partner. So that's your main attachment styles. As I said, love comes into it as well. And the reason I did attachment first is because the attachment style very much overflows into the different types of love that people express. Some of them may be terms that you've heard before, but hopefully the combination of the two may help you identify, I guess, patterns that you may be falling into. If you've been having some unhealthy patterns that you keep repeating and you'd like to stop that, by all means send me a message. More than happy to have a chat to you offline. And if you need any further info on those attachment styles, or there are little tests, like quizzes you can do if you're not 100% certain which one you fall into, particularly if you're feeling like you're that fearful avoidance, so you're getting a bit of both, a bit of dismissive, a bit of anxious. Yeah, just send me a message, happy to send you the quiz, and you can do it for yourself. And I look forward to seeing you all on Wednesday night, and I'll run through all the different types of love that are involved as well, as to how we express it and how we feel it. So thanks again for jumping on, guys. Like it, share it out if you think it's of value, and I will talk to you all on Wednesday night.